Hi, I'm Joe Fawcett. I'm the training instructor for SSU West. This is our new facility. We're located out here in Santa Fe Springs, real close to LA. We're co-located with our warehouse, so if you hear some horns honking in the background, just bear with me. That's the warehouse getting stuff out to job sites. All right, what we're looking at today is doing a different type of training than we've been doing. We're going to kind of get it over to the other side, the experience area, in a few minutes here, where we're going to run you through kind of what a typical installation might look like. All right, today what we're going to focus on is barrel packs, kind of the when, where, how. When does it make sense to use these, right? Well, we're always talking about planning. You know, every seminar we do, we talk about our planning and how important it is. A lot of times that circuit planning kind of goes by the wayside. We're hot and heavy on our feeders, and then boom, it's time to start pulling circuits. All right, so we want to back out to the planning stage a little bit and think about when does it make sense to use these barrel packs. All right, what types of jobs? So that's the kind of thing we're looking at here today. Well, the types of jobs these make sense for, and we'll get into the details of why, are jobs where we have, typical circuitry, real common home runs, hospitals, schools, large office buildings, where we have kind of this consistency in how our home runs are laid out. And I can pull full sets to my junction boxes and then branch out from there, right? And the reason why we're looking at it that way is when we talk about how these things come configured. Well, the barrel packs come in many different configurations, but for 10, 12, and 14 wire, we can load them up with up to 7 conductors, right? Well, what does that 7 conductors mean? Well, if we go to our panel schedules here, that's 3 phases, 3 neutrals with stripes to match, and a ground. All right, you can get in a 6 conductor. Well, that's just going to pull the ground out. We're talking about if we're pulling multiple sets. So when we think about the hows and whys of this, right, if I can pull a whole set super easily, quickly, which we'll show you in a minute here, I'm making some gains. But now if I can start to pull multiple sets in the same conduit, that's where I'm going to really start to realize these gains and increase my efficiency. So in order to do that, we need to be thinking about a couple different things, right? Kind of step out of the way here. Got some code references here. Well, we need to think about conduit fill. We can't overfill the conduit, right? That's a code requirement, depending upon how many conductors there are. Typically we're dealing with that 40% fill. All right, but we also need to start making capacity adjustments once we start to exceed certain numbers of current carrying conductors in a conduit. All right, which that seems like it could be problematic if we're running 12 wire, but then kind of the engineers come in and save us a little bit, because on a lot of these larger jobs, if that home run gets 85, 100 feet, they're speccing, they want you to pull out number 10, even if it's for a 20 amp circuit. Well, now that number 10 amp capacity is way higher than a number 12, so when I start to make those adjustments, I still kind of find myself in a good spot. Obviously, you need to look at your particular job situation to make sure this works. So that's what we're talking about. If we can start to load these conduits up, that's where we're going to realize a lot of our gains. All right, when we start to look at the barrel as far as setting it up, really what we're doing is we're trying to always talk about, we talk about minimizing that material handling. Right? Well, a barrel, it's one piece. It's got, that number 12 configuration with the 7 conductors, it's got 21,000 feet of wire in that barrel. How many reels would that take you? Right? And then you throw it on a cart, which makes it nice and easy to move around, fits through closet doorways easily. Doesn't take up a whole big footprint in the closet, so you can put it close to the panel in the closet and you're not kind of pulling through the doorway, right? Well, the barrels can come 4 on a pallet and so on and so on. So just these things that kind of start to multiply or really diminish the number of pieces that you're handling. If I think about kind of the old green wire trees, well, they've been around, they're dependable, they're reliable. Inevitably, they're hard to get through that doorway and they're fully loaded. You got to kind of struggle to get the reels up on them, leading to back injuries. A lot of times they just barely squeeze through that doorway and the top kind of swings just enough that it's banging up, potentially putting dents in the sheetrock or the metal door frame, just kind of causing you some grief. right? So that's kind of what we're looking at today, is how can we use these barrels effectively, right? Because it really just does all come back to that planning. When do these arrive on a job site? Where are we putting them on a job site? And then how are we making those pulls to be real effective and efficient? All right, so I'm going to take a minute and put on my PPE and head over to the experience area. All right, I'm here in the hands-on area. What we're going to be looking at doing today is two different pulls. We have a short pull, which is about 75 feet long, and we have a long pull. It's about 150 feet long. It has 690s in it. All right, basically the way we're laid out here is I got the panel here and a little bit 20 feet down the wall on the right, I got my pull point for that long pull. Instead of taking a shortcut, we took the long route around the room. So we got an up, 490s around the room, and a down. There is a pull box in the middle, and that's where we'll be pulling a short run from. What we're really looking to do is just demonstrate, how we could set up to pull these from ground level and if we got an elevated box. All right, we've already got our sliders installed on the panel. That's just to cover up those sharp edges. Panels nowadays seem to come more and more of those edges haven't been smoothed out. So we're just trying to eliminate some of those little scrapes and scratches. All right, we need to talk about what we're pulling with. What I mean by that is, are we using drag line, kind of our typical drag lines, our striped nylon drag. You might notice I put a band of tape on them. That just give me a little indication, since I'm here by myself, when a nose is going to come out, just kind of give me that little bit of a warning that the nose is getting ready to come out. Not a bad idea for any type of pull. All right, nylon drags are great. You can get them in different strengths. We make them. What we need to be careful with is we're going to be pulling with our XD1 puller that connects to a cordless drill. That can pull from between 30 and 90 feet per minute, depending upon the ratio of that drill you're using. While I'm using nylon line, in our case in here, we're pulling through EMT, not a problem. But say you're doing a parking lot lighting, something like that, where you got PVC run underground. When you start at those high speeds, kind of an old trick. If you didn't have cutters, you could cut through PVC with the nylon line. Just kind of use it like a saw, right? Well, when you start to get up to those big speeds, the drag's actually going to start to dig into those 90s, and potentially melt itself into those 90s, causing it to seize up. We don't want that to happen. So what we'll be using for our long pull is our quick rope. It's just like the quick rope for our large feeders. Comes in a couple different sizes. We're using the 1/8 inch. It's good for over 1,000 pounds pulling. It pairs well with that XD1. Also, very slick. So it's going to help make that run easier. All right, a couple other things we're going to talk about. We're going to be using our guidance. We'll be pulling from our barrels into the panel. All right, well, we have the guided. You've probably seen these before in some of our presentations. They basically just clamp onto the flange of the panel or pull box, and they basically have this donut shape here. All right, what that's doing is that's kind of keeping that person's hands from needing to be right near the panel. All right, because these barrels come with SIMpull wire in them, we're not needing to be up there to lube the wire. So let's just get our hands out of the mix altogether. All right. Also, kind of as that wire comes through the feed off the barrel and through this, it helps straighten out that wire and align it as it goes into the conduit. These are extendable if you have a wide panel, wide pull box. Real easy to extend. What I'm going to do here is, because we're going to do two pulls, is I kind of put two pieces together here. So I just have two pulling eyes. All right. And that's just so I can set up both poles at once. Again, I'm here by myself. I'm not going to have anybody feeding the wire in the field. You'd probably have somebody watching that feed end, making sure that wire goes in nice and smoothly. But again, these make total sense. So to put them in, you're just going to take that clamp, tighten it up on the flange. Same for the other side. All right, just gonna untie my drags here. Just to kind of help visualize things, I'm gonna pass the drag through those eyes, and then I can see if they need to be adjusted or if they're in a pretty good spot. All right, as you can see there, kind of if I'm feeding from anywhere out here, that's gonna kind of curve that wire nicely up into the conduit. I'm actually gonna move it a little bit closer into the corner, because this conduit comes right into the corner of this panel. All right, you can also tilt them as necessary. Same thing for the other poles. Just slide that over a little bit. We'll be feeding it from that side. So we'll just kind of get it set up like that. All right, with that being said, we're pretty much ready. I'm going to go grab a barrel. We'll talk about how to set that up, where we set it up to be most efficient. All right, here we got the barrel. It's already on the cart. Real easy to just slide it off the barrel into the cart. If it's on the ground, you might need just a hand, somebody to tip it back to get the kind of forks underneath it. All right, we do have one barrel already set up by the panel with the tripod on it. Some things to think about when we're doing this. The cart comes with a kickstand to keep it from tilting back. So we might need to take a little pressure off, pull that up to release it. When we tip it back, we want to step on a top axle and tip it back until it's on all four wheels. All right. Some considerations when we're rolling this towards the panel, we're going to get a lot closer than we would with a typical green cart. All right, I'm going to leave myself with enough room to work behind there. We're going to just set it up closer than you might think you normally would, right? All right, let's put a little pressure on it, tip it down. Once it's where you want it, we're going to push the kickstand down. And that just keeps it from tipping back on you. All right, the barrels come with like a fairly typical drum closure. You just loosen that latch up, unsnap it. That'll loosen up. And pull the cover off and put it on the side. Use that to seal it up later. All right, what we like to tell people to do is when you first open up the barrel, is go in and mark the top where the top of the wire is with a Sharpie. That's something we can use for reference later to see how much wire is left in the barrel. We can just kind of set up a ratio of the height of the wire at the beginning to the height you have now. You knew the total length at the beginning, and we can kind of set that up. All right, so what we want to do now is we actually want to go ahead and start making up the heads. All right, we're going to be using our grippets. Just makes it real easy to set up a head. Instead of needing to pull out your strippers, box cutters, skin the wires back and starting to lace them into your rope, they just basically, you bend them over that triangle, squash them a little bit, and they're good to go. All right, these just have a clip eye. Makes it real easy. All right, we can put up to 3 of these in series. After that, the pressure will start to flatten these out if you're doing a whole bunch of home runs in one set. If you got that kind of scenario set up, we do have our industrial grippets. All right, they come staggered, just kind of like our heads on our feeder wire, and they're connected by that steel cable there, so you don't have any of those squashing issues. Again, that's, if you're pulling 4, 5, 6 sets. All right, today we're going to concern ourselves with the 1. Right, we're going to go ahead and set this up. I'm just going to unclip, put it through the eye of my rope, and then squish it back. All right, that's secure. All right, I'm going to set this one up coming out of the barrel with a tripod on it. It was taped off. The person that taped it off left me a nice flag, so I'm just going to unravel the tape and set that aside. All right, when I look at the grippet, I have those triangles, 7 conductors. Hey, there's 7 slots in that. I'm basically going to put 1 wire through each slot. Right, about an inch or 2 through there, and I want to fold that wire back. So I'm just going to kind of tip it here. I want to fold that wire back. All right, if I get a good fold in there, The pressure of the wire pulling is going to pull that closer to the apex of the triangle. All right, and you don't really need any tape or anything. In this case, since I'm pulling by myself, once the wire is in a conduit, it's not going to come free. But kind of as it's jostling around and with the nose going in, it's possible to knock it loose. So kind of, we always recommend just squashing with a pair of linemen's. And you're just going to squash each of those conductors down. All right, that's going to make sure it's nice and tight in there. We can jiggle it around, it won't pop out on us. Again, once it's in a conduit, not an issue. There's that one, you see? That's why we're squashing them down. All right, so what I don't need to do is I don't need to put a whole bunch of tape on that. All right, so that's a saving step. If I start thinking, well, I know this is a full set, it's got all 3 conductors, 3 neutrals with the stripe on them. Well, maybe I don't need to put my number tags on them just yet. I can save that for the end of the run once I'm all done. I'm not worried about having to tape those tags up and the tape gets torn off. We're not putting lube on it because it's SIMpull, so you're not wearing those numbers out. All right. A good idea if you're doing multiple sets. Here we're doing 2 sets, but we're doing them into the same different conduits. If you're doing them into the same conduit, what's a real good idea is you maybe start to color code each run. So if I got 3 sets in a conduit, I do a black set, a red set, and a blue set. And black is 135, red is 7, 9, 11, blue is 13, 15, 17, something like that. And I can just put a band around the wires, a band around where it's coming out of, and that will set me up. All right, and then at the end, I can go put my numbers on. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to make up the nose for my other run. Always get the check to make sure you pass through the guide it. If not, you just unclip it and clip it back on once you get the rope in the right spot. We think about kind of common things we do. All right, same thing, pulling it through the donut. Again, it's taped off. They left a nice flag for me. Put that tape off to the side. I'll lace my conductors in there. Make sure you got all the conductors, right? Remember, we want to pull whatever's in the barrel, we're pulling. All right, got them in there, and I'll start to fold them over. Really, if you got a good grip, you could probably get them squashed tight enough by hand. But I always like to kind of go a little bit overkill and squash them down too. And again, we're looking for like, somewhere between 1 to 2 inches of wire. We've plenty. We got them there. Now we're going to go ahead and squash those. Make sure they're good, they're secure. All right. We now have 2 sets ready to pull. I made up those 2 noses while I was explaining to you a few minutes. No tape, no anything. All right, so today we're going to be using the XD1. Just hooks to a cordless drill, any 1/2-inch cordless drill. It's got an adjustable boom. We got a couple different adapters we can put on here. In this case, we have the box adapter, which is just going to rest against the lip of that adapter plate. See, there's a little roller at the bottom. Because of the way the roller's situated, the rope's going to come under. So we're going to want the drill to spin this way. And we're going to just use it like a regular big puller. But I want to make sure that rotation is correct before we get going. Right? All right. Not too heavy. It probably weighs about 13, 14 pounds. So you can hold it and operate it. But you also have the option in the bottom, there's a spot to add a kickstand. Right, so you just can thread a conduit in there, This is great because you can kind of customize those lengths depending upon what you're doing. And now I'm not really supporting the weight of it, I'm just operating a trigger. All right, what I like to do, especially when I'm pulling by myself, again, not totally recommended, is go ahead and pull slowly. And just verify that that wire goes into the conduit nice and smoothly. And I'm actually going to pull a little bit more, right? We get this situated in place, right? And just like our big pullers, the tension is going to help hold it in place once you start pulling. All right, I'm going to couple loops on there. All right, we'll see how this works out. I'm not even sure if you can see it. I'm going to press start on the stopwatch here. Oh, it's not going to see it with my glove on. All right, spot me those couple seconds at the end. All right, we want to make sure it's coming down smoothly at the bottom of the roller. All right, get that situated in there. All right, I'm just going to tail this off like I would for any of our regular conduit pullers. All right, if you had another person over here, they could kind of keep a continuous tail on that. I'm by myself here, so I'm going to kind of oscillate the trigger, you know, and get another bite on the rope. See, it goes, pulls fast, no issues. Again, I'm just kind of pulsing here. Not straighting my shoulders at all. Not twisting my back up. Person by the panel would just be monitoring that, making sure everything's going in smoothly. Potentially setting up the head for the next run, and somebody else is set up pulling at the next run. Right? You can kind of have people leapfrogging those home run pulls. I think I saw my blue tape come through, so I'm going to slow down a little bit. All right, now you just need to watch that nose, right? Because the box is kind of tight there. We might need to guide it a little bit. Make sure those wires aren't rubbing against your adapter plate. You can pull off enough to get you to your capstan. All right, I can roll that rope off. It's ready for the next set. I'm just going to set the puller down here for a second. All right. Oh, let me press stop. So if you spot me those, 5 seconds at the beginning, probably 5 seconds at the end, I'm at 3:48, so about 3 minutes, 40 seconds. Now you can see I was pulsing the drill. I was doing it at low speed because I'm by myself, so it'd be even quicker on a job site. If you have somebody, if you have two people doing these pulls. Nobody's straining. As far as our wires here, let's take apart that nose. Well, all I do is just unfold those wires. And pull them out. You could cut them, right? What you are going to want to do is, you can see the wire the insulation gets a little bit dug into where it's trapped in that triangle. So yeah, before I terminate these, I would go ahead and just cut off those ends. All right, we're using the XT1 again. It's a short pull, 75 feet, 390s. We could easily pull this by hand, but I just want to showcase a couple different things here. All right, we've got the conduit adapter on there instead of the box adapter. Just U-shaped, that just kind of saddles the pipe. All right, we've also added a piece of conduit as an extension, so I don't have to climb up and down to the pull box. Save the trips up the ladder for when they really matter. Still using the kickstand. All right, this time we're using drag line. So the drag is actually just going to wrap around the capstan. It's going to be coming over the top, so I just want to check my rotation. Like that. All right. And I kind of get it set in place. I'll need to adjust it once I get that tension in. All right. Also, I always find it a good idea, again, working by myself, just pull that slack out until you get the nose in the conduit. Because once the nose is in the conduit, you should be home free. I got a little extra rope here. I could cut it. In this case, I'm just going to wind that extra on the spool here instead of cutting and make another loop on it. All right, we just have that loop. That's going to go over that hook. I'm going to wind it slowly just to take up my slack. Make sure I'm not getting, my fingers in harm's way here. All right. I guess to be consistent, I'll try and start the stopwatch again. Better if it worked without taking off my glove. All right. In this case, I don't need to tail it off. We're just going to wrap that drag line around the capstan. All right. I'm mainly just watching, make sure it's piling up nicely. Make sure I'm saddled my conduit well up there. If it does start to pile up, you can kind of just guide it a little bit with your finger. I got my nose out in just about a minute. I was running a drill at low speed. If I was in high speed, it would have been about half that time. But I was just trying to give a little time to talk about stuff. All right. Now, we have all this drag line kind of coiled up here. I have enough of my nose out there to terminate. Maybe I want a little bit more. So I'll just pull a little bit more. Plenty for termination up there. All right. As far as getting rid of the drag line, I'm just going to cut it for now. And we can deal with that in a minute. All right. As far as unwinding this goes, I can actually slide the whole capstan off. I'm just going to set the puller down out of the way. Right. And if you just kind of reverse the twist on there, loosen the slack up, you can slide it all off the end without having to, do a whole bunch of work. All right, final step in the process. I've already cut off the wires in the barrel that's from the tripod. I'm scanning out the one that's on the cart. All right, obviously you want to make sure you have enough wire to shape into your panel. Everybody's kind of got their preference. They go down and across or down and across and a little bit. All right, what we want to look at, we want to make sure it's wrapped tight around the core and the wires are evened out. All right, that's just going to make things easier for us, and I'll just kind of lace them through. All right, I want to tape that. Always try and leave that flag on a tape. Makes it much easier to grab it when you're using gloves. You want to tape those wires tightly. All right, like I said, in the case if I were doing multiple sets in a conduit, maybe I'd color code them. This might not be a bad spot to start putting numbers on. Some people don't like to put the numbers on until they're actually terminating to your breakers. All right, it's going to cut those. You'll notice when we're pulling, as the wire comes out of the barrel, it's got a little twist to it. Once it hits the first on it, that twist starts to straighten out. Once it goes through the guide, that really straightens it out. All right, if I were setting up for another pull right away, I'd kind of just make a loop and tie it here. All right, But if you're kind of getting ready to move this to a different closet, maybe move it to a different job site, we want to set it back up the way it was. We're just going to pass the wires through that original hole and give them a real good fold. I always kind of like to overkill things a little bit, so I might even just tie an overhand knot in that. All right, the key is we just don't want to lose the top of that wire. Notice in the barrel there's actually a conduit, that a coupling that rides the wire to kind of help you keep track of that end. And that's it, right? We did, spent a bunch of time talking about things, but actual pulling time for those two poles was what? About 4.5 minutes for both of them combined. Maybe another 2 minutes to make up the nose. Anyway, in less than 10 minutes, I did 2 poles by myself, right? On a job site, you throw another person into the mix. They're keeping their hands out of harm's way. We don't need the box cutters. We're not pulling out wire strippers. We're not spreading lube on the wires onto the floor because it's the SIMpull wire. So really, that's where we want to be thinking about using these barrel packs. Where can we maximize our effectiveness, right? We've compared them to coil packs, and we'll dive into that deeper maybe next month or in the near future. But for now, we just really wanted to cover barrel packs. So thanks. Hope you enjoyed this format of class. We're looking to do more of them this way in the future. And then I think we're going to open up the floor for questions in just a minute here. I was looking at the comment stream on YouTube. I haven't really seen any questions coming through. We're just kind of summarize a little bit, and we got Johnny Sellers on the line too if he wants to join in. When people talk about these barrels, they see, by the nature of the way it's wound around that core, you can notice it has that kind of starts to twist as it comes out. Really, what we're looking at is once it goes over through that first ring closure, whether it's on the cart or the tripod, that kind of starts to straighten it out. And then once it goes through that guide, that really straightens it out before it jumps into the conduit there, right? And that's kind of gets that twist out of the wires and gets them straight going into it. Really, the key benefit to the barrels is, we talk about always saving on a material handling. If you're on a class early today, we talk about how much of the job is spent handling material. But also what we're taking out of it is the inertia of those spools, right? So if you've ever tried to pull wire by yourself, John, if you ever tried to do this off of spools, you get a good pull, those reels go, and then as soon as you stop, the reels wind down, the wire jumps off and starts to get tangled around the thing. So, you're constantly battling inertia, A, to get the spools moving, and then B, those spools want to keep moving once you stop that pull, and that's where you start to get those tangles, right? You don't really have that with the barrels, which is really one of the big pluses of them. I don't know. Have you seen any? I haven't really seen any questions come in. We had a couple comments. Thanks, Dave. He appreciated the hands-on variation of this. We're really looking to try and do more of our more things in this format, right? Because we can show you pictures and talk about things, but really, where the rubber meets the road is when you're installing this on a job. And the hope is that if we're showing you and talking about some of these details about how to do it, what we've learned about the best practices, is that kind of gets the wheels spinning for you folks on the job. You have years of experience out there, right? But once you start to see something being used, then you can start to visualize how that might apply to your particular jobs. Any comments coming in there, Johnny? You got anything to say?
I was going to just add to that, Joe. First off, good job there. You make some great points about thinking differently about the way we approach home runs. And the key to this, and that Joe explained, is having that 1-3-5, having the 3-circuit, full boat, round robin. A lot of folks call it different things, but if you do that and you plan your home runs that way, it takes planning that and laying out your raceway so that you can take advantage of the barrels. So we talk a lot about pre-con and moving the thought about wire pulling back earlier in the stage of the job. So if you do that, you set those barrels up and pull. Are the barrels the solution for every job? No. But if you got a job that's got a lot of home runs, a lot of wire to pull, this is going to be the best way to pull a whole lot of wire very fast and get it done. If you in Joe's scenario there, he was using the barrel with the donut on top. we actually make a set of roller wheels that go on the top of that barrel cart. And if you're in a situation where you're using number 10 home runs, a lot of contractors will standardize on their number 10 for the home runs. That and especially if it's solid, and everybody hates number 10 solid. Yeah. But if you put those rollers on there, it's going to help a lot with straightening out and make that number 10 solid a lot easier to pull.
Yeah,
we all wish they'd ban it, really.
I have a hard time justifying solid wire, especially for a home run. You're going to be splicing it anyway. You're not worried about tailing it onto a device.
That's right. We run into some engineers sometimes that they're really stuck on it,
and even most devices, you are set with those plates nowadays that the screw can capture that stranded and still meet all your requirements. All right. I haven't seen anything coming in the comments. What we do have just kind of came through today as a promo on us. We didn't even really know about this when we were working on a course, and one of our sales folks reached out to us today. We've been offering a promo, I think, for most of the month on our coil packs. If you order 5,000 pounds of wire, they'll throw in the coil pack cart. But what they've done to go along with this here is if you buy 5,000 pounds of SIMpull wire in a barrel, right, which that adds up pretty quick, because that configuration with the 712 wires in it, I think that comes out to be about 500 pounds. The barrel, it's like just a little over 500 pounds. They're going to put that hand truck in there to maneuver it. Now, you don't need a hand truck for every barrel you have on a job, but you do need the hand truck to move the barrels, right, and pay off. So this is a great opportunity to get some savings here and start utilizing these on your job sites. Looks like we got another comment about the demonstration aspect. So it seems like folks are liking kind of this format. So I think it's definitely a way to go as we move forwards. Beth or Johnny, you have anything else to add?
No, you did a great job, Joe.
Oh, thanks, Beth.
Great job, Joe. You may have a future in Hollywood making films.
Yeah, I just need to find a safety vest that can contain me.
Well, no, to the point there, we want to do more of this kind of stuff, and we look to try to bring content out to our contractors and to the folks that happen to be in the field. So reach out to us if you got suggestions on some things that you would like to see that we could help you with. By all means, let us know. We've got a training facility that Joe's in out in Los Angeles. We have our training facility in Carrollton, Georgia, and we can certainly help with anything that you need. So let us know.
All right. Well, if no more comments are going to come in, I guess, Beth, do you want to wrap us up here?
Sure, Joe. Thanks everyone for watching our first live stream on YouTube. We're so excited about it. We're going to have more great things for you guys in the future, and we just look forward to having those classes. And thank you, Joe, for being here tonight, for taking your time. Thank you, Johnny, and thank you, Christy, our training center manager, for being with us. And thanks a lot. We'll see everybody next time. Thank you.
And also, if you liked it and you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel here. Help us out.
Definitely.